Before we dive in, I'd like to mention that we're launching something new. This is something that we've been cooking up for a while, and now it's come to a head. It's called Catalyst. It's a community space created specifically for you, AEC professionals who are designing, building, and reimagining what's next. Catalyst is where the sharpest minds in AEC innovation are shaping the future of our industry. Want to be in the room? I know you do. Join the waitlist at kpreddy.co. That's kpreddy.co. See you there. Hey, welcome back to KP Unpacked. This is where the biggest ideas in AEC, AI, and innovation all collide in one podcast. It's powered by KP Reddy Co., and this is where we break down the trends, the technology, the discussions, and the strategies that are shaping the built environment and beyond. My name is Jeff Echols. I'm the Executive Director of Catalyst here at KP Reddy Co. And as the name might imply, I am joined today by our CEO and founder, KP Reddy. Hi, KP.
Hey, Jeff. How's it going?
It's going good. We're going to have a good conversation today about awards. So that'll be fun. We'll dig into several different angles here, I know. And there's a lot going on. We're in just a couple of days. I guess we're headed to, as we record this at least, we're headed to Atlanta for our next one-day mastermind event.
Yeah. Also our first Integrated Owners Forum
Correct.
meeting. So that'll be fantastic. So
yep. It's a combined event where we'll have owners, we'll have mastermind members, we'll have people that want to be mastermind members, building product manufacturers, architecture, engineering, construction, obviously, all across the built environment, as we like to say around here. So it's going to be a great event, Tuesday, May 20th, which by the time you hear this, it'll already be past.
It's kind of funny. I was at the ENR FutureTech conference and ran into a bunch. You need to run into people. I never actually went to any sessions. I just got stuck at the front door talking to people, and then the whole day went by. Which is always how events are, right? It's rarely the listening to the people on stage. It's really more the conversations in the corridors and in the open areas. But so someone that was trying to, some of our podcast listeners, so many, by the way, very uncomfortable. KP, love your podcast, and I just get shy. I'm okay like this. Catch me one-on-one and give me compliments, and I'm just gonna shrink up to about yay high. I love your LinkedIn post. I'm like, okay, bye. Please don't make eye contact.
So here's my shout out to all of our listeners. Please seek out KP, go up to him one-on-one, and compliment him and see what happens.
It's 54 years of trauma. I don't take compliments well.
You can add to KP's trauma.
But someone said hey, what is it you do? And it's I'm describing it. They're they keep up with, the link that all the stuff that we do.
Yeah.
And they said I need to change my, I think on my website, it says, something about changing the future or something.
Yeah.
And he said that my tagline should be unionizing change for the AEC environment.
Unionizing?
And I think his point was the stuff you talk about, the stuff your thoughts, they're progressive, and now people are starting to listen to them and they want to buy into it, but they also feel alone. So it's you're saying the things that we're all thinking, but once you say them, we're allowed to agree with you and be part of it, but we can't be the first people to say it. So I think his description of that I'm unionizing change, I think was a bit of an homage to our industry, right? But we should call, our mastermind, it's really union meetings.
KP Reddy, union organizer.
Union organizer. My father-in-law would be so proud.
Can we get him on as a guest next week?
Maybe. I mean, he's fantastic. But he grew up in Detroit
Yeah.
in the automotive industry. So
Yeah.
in his mind, like, unions are
That's it.
good. And I'm like,
Yeah, exactly.
are they good all the time? Like, in some cases, yes. In other cases, like, it's just these blanket statements of unions are
Yeah.
good.
Oh, yeah, like
And I'm
anything
like,
else, has the cycle completed?
yeah.
Yeah.
But it was interesting, and this will probably segue into kind of some of what we want to talk about today. But I posted on LinkedIn, and I said, look, the ENR FutureTech conference, that they do a good job. I mean, look, we know how hard it is to do events. We quote
Mhm.
unquote aren't in the events business, but we try really hard. Um,
We try really hard to be in, but not in. Yeah.
you might get a box of Dunkin' Donuts Munchkins as a snack, and you have to unbox it yourself. But like, yeah, we're not great at events, but we're trying to get better. Like, it's just not our core competency. We don't do it for a living per se. But so I know they do a fantastic job, right? It's a great venue. Um, I will say most of their speakers, from what I could tell, were not pay to play. I like
Mhm.
a lot of their panels and all. It was sponsored by someone, but
Mhm.
nobody from that someone was on the panel,
Yeah.
which I think is maybe okay. Like, I don't know, maybe I buy that. Like, so, versus maybe a Built Worlds where it's sponsored by and the panel and the speaker is this,
Right.
so which is much more pay for play. But
Mhm.
when you're in the events business, that's just how it is, right? Like, how do you pay for all the coffee, all the food in these venues, hotel AV, which is
Right.
like a racket, right? So after all that, like, it takes money to run these things, right? So you have, so it makes sense. Like, ENR is like in a business; they're not a charitable organization, but I think they did a pretty good job of, like, you can pay to be part of it, but that doesn't mean you get to say whatever you want to.
Yeah.
So I posted on LinkedIn. I said my only thing, and you know, I said, like, I've seen um the attendees become a little bit more junior
Mm. At
over
that
time
particular event.
at a lot of events, but
Okay.
specifically that
Okay,
event. I've
gotcha.
seen it at Built Worlds. I've seen it
Okay.
at a lot of these events, right? Even
Mhm.
even Autodesk University, which has always been more of a junior event because it's
Mhm.
about training, right? Back in the day, it was CAD
Right,
training. Now
right.
it's BIM training. So
Yeah.
CEOs aren't getting trained up
But
on
that's
Revit.
dead now.
Yeah, that's dead now. No one cares about that.
BIM is
Um,
dead.
so I think, my point on the post around these events and everything was just that, I think part of it is the bad news was I don't feel like I met any people that I would have wanted to meet, so to speak. I met
Okay.
the people I already know, kind of.
Got it. Okay.
Didn't meet any CEOs type of thing, which is important to me for where I'm at in my
Sure.
life.
Yeah.
Um, but it's also that's the bad news. The good news is the reason we have so many junior people at these conferences is the maturity of the business, right? So, this year will be 9 years for Summit. My
Mhm.
first 2 years of my Summit were all CEOs.
Right.
CEO of Thornton Tomasetti, Walter P. I mean, it was all who's who of CEOs. And it
Mhm.
was because we're going to talk about innovation and how innovation was going to shape our industry.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Then a
see where
few
you're
years
going.
later,
Yeah.
they all hired innovation people,
Mhm.
chief innovation officers. So the next following years, instead of Tom Scarangelo from Thornton Tomasetti coming, he sent Rob Otani, which Rob's the CTO, fantastic guy, super smart, love to have him. Nothing against Rob, but it was like, okay, well, I have people now that are focused on this,
Mhm.
right? So that was the maturity. Like, now I have someone dedicated towards doing innovation. Then the following years, these people that are the innovation leaders now have teams.
Right.
So they're kind of saying, like, and once again, egos, not trashing anyone exactly. Um, but hey, if you want me to come speak, I'm happy to come, or I can send my team.
Mhm.
So that's the good news, right? The good news is it used to be only CEOs cared about innovation. Then they
Right.
hired people to full-time care about innovation, and those people have built teams. So it's not necessarily a bad thing that there were a lot of more junior people there. It might just be the maturity of the industry, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it tracks with everything that we know. Yesterday, I recorded a podcast episode, which, as you're listening to this, maybe has already come out. I don't have my the publication document open in front of me to see when everything is going to be posted. But
We have no idea. They're
um,
running Monte Carlo simulations on when our content gets posted.
they're spinning a wheel. Um, Yesterday, I recorded an episode with Alan Montpierre at
Mhm.
PAE,
Yeah.
who's the Chief Innovation Officer there. He's one of our mastermind members. He's in the Innovation Leaders Mastermind group. He's actually one of our OGs.
Mhm.
I still, right here on my desk, I have his card. He might be, when I announced our mastermind program in
See some.
2023, is that when it
Mhm.
was? 2023 at
Yeah.
Summit in Atlanta. He may have been the very first person that came up and said, "Hey, I want in."
Mhm.
And so he and I had a fantastic conversation yesterday as we're recording this podcast episode. And a lot of that time that we spent talking, we talked about developing cultures of innovation, and
Mhm.
we talked about innovation teams,
Mhm.
right? And the fact that, if you look at our different mastermind groups, the innovation leaders, the construction tech leaders, and beyond, I think I often shy away from speaking in absolutes.
Mhm.
Um, but I think
Mhm.
everybody that is in those mastermind groups who's focused on innovation now has a team. Now, some
Yep.
of those are very small teams, and some of those are larger teams. Some of those are new teams. Some of those are more mature teams. But to what you're saying, if you look at the membership of our mastermind groups, we have the leaders of innovation across the AEC. You look at the
Mhm.
firms that are there that are
Yep.
represented. This is it, right? These are the
Mhm.
people that are innovating. And so to the organization, I believe, I might be wrong, but to the organization, every one of them is building out or has built out or continues to build out an innovation team. And that really makes a lot of
Mhm.
sense. And it makes sense to what you're saying too, because it's and a lot of them are sending their teams to our early and mid-career mastermind group,
Yeah.
which is
I'll
also
tell you,
really
like,
intriguing.
dude, like next Tuesday, if a bomb goes off in Atlanta, it'll set the AEC industry's innovation path back like 20 years because they're all there.
Yeah, that's,
They're all
that's
there.
you know, um, I'm just gonna say to our production team,
Please edit KB.
just so because
Brown
I
guys aren't allowed to talk about bombs.
God, um, I am fully aware that we're being listened to now, not just in this recording, but Big Brother. Um, just want to make it clear that was not a threat.
That was a joke.
Yeah, that when I see the black helicopters outside your window there, I'm gonna know.
I have a whole nother story about that. Different podcast.
All right, well, part two. Stay
Part two.
tuned for part two.
But, so it's interesting, right? Like, I think it's good news, right? That the industry is evolving, that you
Yeah,
actually have
absolutely.
teams and all
Right.
and all that stuff. And, I'll take half the credit. Um, because I do, my challenging behavior, like, oh, you're serious about innovation? That's weird. You're doing it part-time, 5 hours a week, building to a job code in your system. Yes, you're
Mhm.
very committed to innovation.
Yeah.
And so then, they put that person on full time, like, oh, so you're the chief innovation officer managing a team of 0.
Mm.
That's commitment. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully I'm a catalyst.
You're a catalyst. Speaking of catalyst, right before we came here and hit record, I was in Catalyst, which is our online community, kpready.co, to register. I was in Catalyst doing so. if you're listening to this, you may already know this, but every week I go live in Catalyst and do my KP content recap. And I try to pack in everything that we have published over the week in 10 minutes or less. And I think I was pretty successful this time. But it's 8 to 10 minutes, and it covers the podcast. It covers our YouTube shorts and our YouTube longs. Is that what they're actually called? I don't even know. Like YouTube videos,
Regulars, YouTube regulars.
but you know me, I need longs. Otherwise the sleeves are too short. And our Substack and LinkedIn and the newsletter every week. So over there in Catalyst, and that's where Catalyst is becoming the hub of everything that we do. Our mastermind groups, our integrated owners forum, our advisory, our discussions about this, that, and the other. Right, our research team is publishing articles there, and then of course I recap that every Friday around the middle of the day. There's a lot going on around here, so we haven't really hit sort of a regular schedule to that yet. But you can find that over there on Catalyst. And what's going to happen in next week's recap is we'll talk about AEC Awards, because we'll unpack that post and this program that we're rolling out, a partnership that we're rolling out as well. If you've just joined us and you've made it this far, if you've made it 15 minutes in, you haven't run screaming from the room because of people making threats or anything like that, please don't call anybody. Please, just it's a joke.
Yes. Please do not bag and tag me.
KP Reddy, REDD. Half Moon Bay, California. Next week he'll be
different venue.
Yeah, he'll be in Atlanta. If you're new to this, KP and I come here every week to unpack one of his LinkedIn posts, and there's always some back and forth. I'll send him a Slack message Thursday afternoon or Friday morning, say, okay, what are we going to talk about this week? And we look at all of the things that he posts. So if you're not following him on LinkedIn, you should be. You can't connect with him because he's just like that. But if you're not following him on LinkedIn, you should. Just go to KP, letter KP, and then Reddy, REDDY. And KP posts several times a day about going to ENR 500 and all of the different places, all of his different travels, all of the work that he's doing, the team is doing, his insights from all these conversations and all these travels. And we pick one to discuss every week. We pick one to unpack every week. And so this week we're going to talk about the AEC Innovators Awards and awards in general. And you've already teed this up, right?
Yeah.
With the idea of pay to play. We'll go there. For those of you sitting on the edge of your seat that may have heard opinions shared before, we're going to go there.
Yeah. You might want to put it from 1.5x back down to 1.
Or does anybody? So I wondered. So I listen to a lot of things on 1.5 or 1.75.
I'm just this is specifically for Ro. I know he listens. He listens to things on like 3x, I think.
Well,
so this is for him to see if he's paying attention to the pod. So
yeah,
we'll see.
We should talk really slowly. Hey, Ro, you should slow it down. I consume everything via audio. I listen to books on audio, podcasts, etc. I don't like to sit and read anything, and I listen to 1.5x a lot. And I was wondering the other day, so I was listening to something, I was having trouble keeping up to it. It's like, whoa, this is a little deeper than I can handle at 1.5 or 1.75 or something like that. So I'm gonna slow it down. And I looked, and the settings will go below 1.
Yeah.
And I thought, my gosh, who's talking so fast that somebody slows it down to slower than their normal speed? That boggles my mind. I didn't even think about it. Didn't realize that that
I
we need
don't.
to get row on like
Yeah.
0.5.
Not to call anyone out, but on Slack today, one of the looms on Airtable training,
Hmm. Yeah.
on the Airtable like best practices from our
Hmm.
data team.
Yeah.
I could have slowed that down. He
Hmm.
was very fast.
Yeah. Well, oh, okay. That's a good example. That's a very
But
good
yeah.
example. Yeah.
So gosh,
But
are we
just
ever
this
gonna
as
get
you
to the
need to.
topic? So there's a couple things, right? So
Hmm.
awards are, and it's not just for our industry, it's for every industry, right?
Right.
And different awards have different systems, right? So the JD Power Award, very famous award, right? Everybody
Hmm.
knows about that.
Yep.
My understanding of their model, when I looked into it years ago, it might have changed, is they provide the award in a very pure way, right? The
Mm.
team assesses the cars, the midsize SUVs, whatever the category is, right? They have lots of categories, but whatever the category is, right? They assess it and then they give people an award. They don't charge for that. There's no application fee. There's none of that, right? It's done in a very purist, ethical way. Now, their business model is if you're a car manufacturer and you want to say you received the JD Power Award, they charge for that. So every time it flashes on TV, they're getting paid. Every time you use it in a brochure, they get paid. I mean, it's like per instance.
That's
It's not like
interesting.
here's
I
your
didn't know that.
logo, give us $1 million
Hmm.
and you can use it all you want. It's like every time you print something with winner of the 2025 JD Power Award, you pay them.
Wow.
Every time it shows up on TV, you pay them.
Hmm.
And that's their business model, which is fine. So their view is like, I mean, if you don't want to tell anyone that you won, that's cool,
That's
right?
sneaky.
It's no, which is actually kind of fine. As a
Hmm.
consumer, that's great. They're paying to say that they won it, but they didn't pay to receive it,
Hmm.
right? So I think there is some ethics in there, right, in their business model. The Gartner folks have like their cool, the Gartner quadrant and the cool
Hmm.
startup. I think they operate under a similar model, um, but I think you're more likely to get in the mix, right, shortlisted for evaluation. I think if you have them on retainer, probably.
Sure.
Like so, it's a little less like straightforward. So so one of the coolest things about being vocal and being a complainer, I complain about everything, right? Is that sometimes people call you and say, "Hey, you know what? I agree with you. That's BS. Like I agree with you, right?" So sometimes people do that. So Chad over at Y Group, I was talking about awards. They do a lot of awards. They do Hot Firm
Chad
Awards.
Clients,
Yeah,
CEOs of Zweig.
they do a lot of awards. And I was complaining, and he was like, "Yeah, like I hear you. Like that's not a good business model to pay for play." So when I look at startups saying, "Hey, I'm in the top 50 list of whoever, we know who." Like, why? Like, how did you get there? Like, "Oh, we sponsored." Okay.
Hmm.
Well, that's not exactly ethics, like, fine. Or you win some other Mavericks award or whatever, right? Like this, it's if you're not writing a check, you're not winning the award, right? So there's a lot of those. I'm not picking, I mean, you guys have probably figured out who I'm talking about, but there's plenty of those pay for play awards, right? And so Chad was like, look, we don't do that. And part of it is I think they've been around for a while, right? Their whole thing is like, hey, we do this
They
as
have been.
they've been around for a while. Um, and so I was kind of complaining. It's like, hey, why don't we do an innovation award? And I'm like, as long as it's not pay to play, as long as it's and as long as we're clear about how we evaluate people.
Right.
Right. So part of it is if you can't share to me transparently what the process is, how things are shortlisted and what the voting mechanism and what are the rubric of criteria, right?
Hmm.
Then I think you're full of it. Then it's just a bunch of guys sitting around having a bourbon saying, "Hey, I like that guy." Let's, it becomes a popularity contest, right?
Right.
And that's not the goal, right? The goal is to manage things with the level of integrity. So I was complaining about it, and Chad was like, "Let's do this together. Like we have the infrastructure to keep it above board. People know we're above board, and so yeah. So we decided to do that together. Frank Lazaro is actually running it. kind of day to day. But I think it's going to be super interesting. But the reason I wanted to do it, right? In other words, like, does everyone need another award? Do we need more awards? It really came from the work we're doing at IOF. So IOF is our Integrated Owners Forum. And so I was talking to these owners about how do AEC firms incorporate innovation into their pitch, into their selection process. And they kind of admitted, they said, here's the problem. Once we get into RFP mode, if there is not a scoring mechanism in our evaluation, back to ethics, right? Here are the 15 areas that we're going to score people on as a committee, as a selection committee. Maybe sometimes there's a box called innovation and it's like high, medium, and low. Like, we don't actually know anything. But once we're in the procurement cycle, we really have to stick to our procurement methodology and kind of the ethics around that. So our goal is to compare apples to apples, not apples to grapefruits to oranges to kiwi fruit. Like, that's not the business model, right? The business model is I need to get everybody to apples. So in fact, sometimes they might add addendum information and we say, no, you can't give us that. Like, we didn't ask for that. Right. So the submittals have to be very generic in many ways. And so I was like, well, how do you know what firms are doing? Like, how do you know, like, maybe they're approaching things differently? And they're like, we have no way of knowing. We really don't. And so then I go walk over to my AEC friends. They're like, yeah, it's a problem. Like, everybody throws BIM and a picture of a BIM and a picture of LiDAR and a couple of drones. And it's our one innovation slide in our entire presentation. But we never get to talk about how we're doing it differently, like how we're actually maybe making an impact. And so that's problematic because everybody has that slide. And if you don't have that slide, call Frank Lazaro. He'll show you how AI can make that slide for you.
I think that's what he and I are recording an episode about today.
Yeah. So I think that's part of what we're trying to achieve. I think that's what I got excited about, is creating a forum for AEC firms to kind of peacock a little bit, show off, right? Show off, tell us all the stuff you're working on. Me and my team will evaluate it for, if you tell me like, hey, we're very innovative, we bought Revit, you're probably not going to make it, right? You got to be, there's a bar here. I'm also not opposed to giving no one an award. If everybody sucks, I'm just not giving out an award. Just what's going to happen, right? So I'm not attached to someone. This isn't 5-year-old T-ball. Everyone does not get an award. There are winners and there are losers. That is how that works. I know some people just, that's mean, that's harsh. It's like, no, that's life. However, so that's how we're approaching it. I'm really excited about it because I do want to see, I think giving, because we deal with all of our innovation folks in our mastermind groups. And what's one of the number one things we talk about at least once a month is storytelling, brand, communication. And they never have a chance. We tell them they need to do it, but then they never have the opportunity to show us.
Right.
So I'm pretty excited about that part. I think for our a lot of the people we know will be submitting, it's a really good opportunity to like strut your stuff and really be able to go deep on what you're working on.
Yeah. I mean, we actually talked about that. You and I recorded on that a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, maybe. Communication being everything, right? Yeah, the selection process that is curious to me. The with the checklist that they have, right, and the desire to compare apples to apples, and we understand that, right? And not everybody is saddled by that, but many, especially as you get into larger organizations, they are. But I would also question whether or not, and that's not really the topic that we're on, question whether or not they're actually getting, if their process is leading to success or not.
Right.
Right. So,
and And as you know, like my PR firm, they've been with me for a while. They pay me all the time. Now they finally know. Like, hey, KP, these guys want to give you an award, and I'm like, how much? Right. That's my first question. It's like when people are like, oh, they want you to be on their podcast. I'm like, how much? Do we charge for
Mhm.
people to be on our podcast?
No, we don't.
Yeah, we should like run an auction.
For slots.
I mean, we're the number one podcast in AEC, so there's that. However, like we should do a charity auction. How about that?
For a seat.
We'll do a
Just one
charity
episode,
auction.
or
If you want to be on our podcast, we'll auction it off. Maybe we'll do that at our Q3 mastermind meeting
we could do
in
that.
Half Moon Bay.
We could do that.
We'll auction it off for some like, isn't there like AEC Cares? There's a bunch of like AEC nonprofits. We'll
Sure.
bid it up.
Yeah. Yeah. You can come on